Hi, in today's video we will see how to create a C# Windows Form application using a database connection to add, update, delete and retrieve employee records. First of all, we need to create the database and employee table in SQL Server Management Studio. For that, open SQL Server Management Studio. We have uploaded a separate video for fixing the SQL Server issues if you are facing any problem in connecting the SQL Server. To create a new database, right-click on the database folder and then click on the New Database option. Type the database name and click on the OK button. Click on the plus icon to expand the newly created database. Right-click on the Tables folder. Select New and then choose the Table option. In the New Table window, enter the column names one by one and specify the data type for each column. Right-click on the ID column and choose the Primary Key option. Press Ctrl plus S keys or right-click on the table window and choose the Save option. Type the table name and press the Enter key. Expand the Tables folder to view the newly created table. Right-click on the Tables folder and select the Refresh option if the newly created table is not visible in the Tables folder. Minimize the SQL Server window after creating the database and tables. Open Visual Studio and create a new C# Windows Form application. Type the project name and then click on the Create button. We need to quickly design the front end for the application. Click on the label control in the left toolbox panel and drag it to the form. Change the label text property to ID and change the label font size and font weight in the properties panel. Copy the label and paste it 3 times anywhere in the form. Align the labels on the form. Change the label text one by one. Choose Text Box control in the Toolbox panel and drag it to the form. Change the text box name that will be used to process the text box data in the coding part of the application. Change the text box font size and font weight. Follow the same process to add the remaining 3 text boxes. Add 4 buttons to add, update, delete and retrieve the database records. Click on the button control and drag it to the form. Change the button background color using the back color property option. Change the button font size and font weight. Change the button font color using the button for color property and update the button text to add employee. Follow the same process for the remaining 3 buttons. Resize the form by dragging it from the right side. Click on the Data Grid View control in the Toolbox panel and drag it to the form. Resize the Data Grid View control. We will use the Data Grid View control to display all the values returned from the database. The front-end design of the application is complete. Now we will move to the coding part of the project. First of all, we need a configuration file to store the database configuration information. For that, right-click on the project solution in the solution panel. Hover the mouse over the Add option. Select the New Item option. Type config in the search box and press enter. Select the application configuration file and click on the Add button. This will add the app.config XML file in your project that we will use to configure the database. Add the connection strings tag inside the configuration element of the XML. Write the add element code. The add element has three attributes: name, connection string, and the provider name attribute. Add any name for the connection string in the name attribute. As we are using SQL connection for this application, therefore we need to add the system.data.sql client in the provider name attribute. In the connection string, we add the data source, initial catalog, and integrated security options. Data source is the name of the SQL Server instance. Open SQL Server Management Studio. Right-click on the main database instance icon. Choose the Properties option. Copy the server instance name from the Server Properties window. Paste the server instance name in the data source. Initial catalog is the database name, not the database name from SQL Server Management Studio, and type it in the initial catalog option. Integrated security is the authentication method. Set the integrated security option true to use the default Windows authentication for the database connection. app.config file is now complete. Double-click on the Add Employee button to add the employee records to the database. We will write all the code in try-catch blocks to handle unexpected errors. Before connecting the database, we need to add two libraries to our project. Add system.data.sql client and system.configuration library to the project. Write the code in the try block string cs equal to configuration manager dot connection strings employee db dot connection string. Employee db is the connection string name used in the app.config file. Write the code for the SQL insert query and store it in the query string variable. The ID and salary fields are of integer data types and the other two fields are of varchar data type. Therefore, we have converted the ID and salary values from string to integer in the insert query. txt name is the text box name and .text is the property of the text box to fetch its value. After writing the SQL insert query, we will use the SQL connection variable to connect the database. Write the code using SQL connection CONN equal to new SQL connection CS and open and close brackets. Make sure to include the system.data and system.data.sql client name servers to establish the connection with the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. The SQL connection method is giving an error of SQL connection not found in the SQL client name servers. To fix the issue, right-click on the project solution file in the solution panel. Select Manage NuGet Packages. Click on the Browse option and then search for SQL Connect in the search box. Select the first system.data.sql client file by Microsoft and click on the Install button in the Properties panel. After installing the system.data.sql client, close the NuGet Manager tab. The SQL connection method should now perform all its operations. We need two more variables. The first one is the SQL data adapter and the second variable is the dataset variable. We are creating the SQL adapter variable DA and initialize the variable using the SQL query string and the database connection string. Create the dataset DS variable and initialize the variable. Data adapter dot fill dataset and the employee table. This code will execute the insert query. After successful execution of the query on our database, we need to show a message box to confirm the action that the employee is added successfully. Close the connection using the connectionString.close method. Run the application to test the code. Add the employee information and click on the Add Employee button. The employee is added successfully. Let's check in our database. Right-click on the table and select the top 200 rows. The new employee record is added to our table. Now we will write code to retrieve all the employee records here on the right side of the form. Close the window and back to the design mode of the application. Note down the grid view name in the Properties panel. Double-click on the Retrieve All Employees button. Copy the previous Add Employee button code and paste it into the Retrieve Employee button method block. Update the query string. Select all from employee. Remove the message box because we don't need it for the retrieve button. Write the code. Data grid view 1. Dot data source equal to ds dot tables index 0 dot default view. Save the changes and run the application. Click on the Retrieve All Employee button. and the database table records will display in the data grid view. Let's quickly write the Update Employee button functionality. Back to the design mode of the application. Double-click on the Update Employee button. Copy the same Add Employee button code and paste it into the Update Employee button method block. We are doing this because we will modify the same code to update the employee records. Write the Update SQL query. Update the message box message. That's all. Save the changes and run the application. We want to update the first record. Change the name from Asif to Muhammad Asif. For that, type the ID, updated name, designation and salary. And click on the Update button. Again, retrieve the employee records. The table is now showing the updated records. The last function is to delete the employee record from the database. Close the application and back to the design mode of the application. Double-click on the Delete Employee button. Copy the previous button code and paste it into the Update Employee method block. We only need to update the SQL query and the rest of the code will remain the same. Update the SQL query to SQL delete statement. Update the message box text message. Save the changes and run the application. Enter the ID date you want to delete and click on the Delete button. Click on the Retrieve All Employees button again, and the employee record is successfully deleted. Do the same to delete the second employee record. We have recently hit the 500 subscribers and 10k views milestone on YouTube. Thank you so much for your great support in the form of feedback that we have received on our previous videos. We will learn more advanced C# topics including input validations, async and synchronized connection, website development using C# and much more in the upcoming videos. Share your comment and feedback about this video and your question in the YouTube comments section. Like the video and share it with your friends to support the work. Also, visit the TECHINSPEC.com website for more amazing technology and computer science related stuff. Thank you for watching and see you on the upcoming TECHINSPEC video.